It all began in June with an opening ceremony at the Milwaukee Safety Academy, an introduction to some of the police command staff, and a welcome from the chief.
And I am officially welcoming you into our family. You are, after today, going to become a part of the Milwaukee Police Department. It's historic. It's a first. It took some time to get it started. It took some time for us to get where we are. But we're here, and I'm certainly proud to be your chief, and proud that you're here today and that you're interested in what we do as police officers. The whole purpose of the Citizens Academy is for you to know what we do, to experience what we experience, to take part in our training.
The citizens were exposed over the 10-week period to a wide array of police-related subjects. The training was not designed to certify them to perform law enforcement services, but to provide them with a working knowledge of the police department.
Firearms, you have 5 hours of firearms. You get DAT, which is defense arrest tactics. It's what we do when we have to arrest somebody who doesn't want to be arrested. The different things. You're going to actually see the training. And that's what a lot of this is about. You're not going to be handcuffing and wrestling people down, but you will see how the officers are trained to do what they do. So when you see something happen on the street, you're going to say, hey, I know why they did that. I know why they do exactly what they do.
Every organization has a mission, and the first night in class included an overview of the police department and its mission statement.
Not lengthy, it's just right to the point. To reduce crime, enhance the quality of life in the city of Milwaukee. Everything we do, every program we engage in, everything we develop, all our strategies are based on this statement: to reduce crime, enhance the quality of life in our city.
It wasn't all classrooms and books. One field trip took the Police Citizen Academy members downtown to the Police Administration Building. The first stop there, the Identification Division. Its crime technicians are a major support agency for the cop on the street and are selected from veteran police officers.
They'll have anywhere generally from 3 years to 12 years experience before they come to work here. Once they come here, we take them for a 3-week course, 120 hours worth of crime scene processing with photography, how to collect fingerprints, blood, DNA, shoe wear impressions, things like that. And then they participate in the ride-along program for about a week or so before we actually have them go to crime scenes. So we're taking that whole, basically 160 hours worth of training, and we're going to try to compress it into about 45 minutes just to kind of give you an overview of what we do. Our division takes approximately 150,000 photographs of crime scenes and evidence throughout the year. We also handle the prisoner processing. We process approximately 40,000 prisoners a year. Now, we don't actually physically have the bodies come here because when somebody's arrested, they go to a particular district where they've got the jails there. They're fingerprinted and photographed at that location, but all those photographic images, the mug shots, get transferred down here on our computers, as do the fingerprints. And we're going to show you how that works in a little bit. We're going to show you how we live scan people, how we actually collect the fingerprints. That's done at the particular districts. That information comes down here. Our technicians look at the fingerprints and they say, yes, this person really is who they say they are. Because you're going to find it hard to believe, but there's a few people out there that actually lie to us about who they really are. They'll give a friend's name, a brother's name, they'll make up a name. And it's very important for records that we know specifically who we've got. We don't use photographs to identify people. We only use fingerprints because fingerprints don't lie. We, within our division, we're going to do a lot of things at crime scenes, but one of the major things that we do is look for fingerprints, and that's how we identify prisoners. And this is just a chart in a large fingerprint that I'm going to show you here. And this would be a fingerprint taken on a regular fingerprint card when somebody applies for the job or when somebody's taken into custody. We take a set of fingerprints. This is what a fingerprint would look like. The one on this side that's kind of faint, that's what we call a latent fingerprint, or a fingerprint from a crime scene. That's a fingerprint that's left there unintentionally by somebody. Sometimes you can see smears and smudges, but in most cases you can't see a latent fingerprint. We have to develop that. We have to enhance it so that we can see what's there. Now I want you to keep in mind that it's not like on TV. It's not like Forensic Files or CSI, things like that. What they do there, the things that they show can be done under ideal circumstances in a lab setting. You can do almost anything. However, in the real world, it doesn't really work that way. Okay, just so you have an understanding, with all the crime scenes that we do, and our division processes between 5,000 and 6,000 cases a year. That's quite a few. You end up recovering fingerprints, usable fingerprints, only about 30% of the time. In addition, when we go to crime scenes, we're also going to, besides dusting for fingerprints and looking for DNA, we're going to try to get shoe wear impressions. We can have people's shoes identified and say this person was at the scene. We can do tire wear impressions. There's things called electrostatic lifters that even though you can't see a fingerprint or a shoe print on a floor, we can actually use an electrostatic system to try to get that dust print off the floor.
If fingerprints must be taken, don't always expect the old ink and card method. That job, as is so often the case, is usually done by a computer.
Again, what we used to do is we used to do ink fingerprints. That's what we had for the last 100 years. But with advanced technology, this is easier, it's less messy, and it gives you actually better fingerprint images because you don't have any smearing or smudging. This is called a live scan station. This is what they use at the districts in order to do fingerprints for prisoners. In this case, we also do it for applicants. If somebody comes to the Milwaukee Police Department and wants to apply, or they want to become a teacher, they want to get a license for a cab driver's license, we fingerprint them because we want to have those fingerprints to make sure we don't have any bad people out there in these particular professions, especially coming on this job. So we will also use this for fingerprints here. And you can see how big it gets. It allows the person taking the fingerprints, even if they can't look at fingerprints and analyze them like we can, they can see a clear image here. They know that they're doing a good job.
Fingerprints are unique, but there are several different kinds: arches, loops, and whorls.
With an arch, it's just the ridges flow from one side to the other. These only comprise about 5% of the entire population. Loops are about 65%, and these are whorls are about 30 to 35%. And amongst any of you, you can have a combination of anything. There are no two fingerprints from anybody, identical twins or anything, that completely match up. Fingerprints are both individual, specific to a specific individual person, and they're permanent. They don't change.
Next up, the laboratory, which processes information that can't be dealt with at the scene of a crime.
Now, in most cases, we go out to the crime scenes. We go out to the burglaries, the robberies, and we will process at that location, meaning to use fingerprint powders to try to develop fingerprints on whatever the object is. But in a lot of cases, whether it's drug paraphernalia cases or Ziploc bags from marijuana that our vice squad would end up collecting, they would bring it here to us. If officers recover a gun from a particular person, they may bring it down to our division. We would process it in our lab here. And there's, again, I'm kind of compressing this because we don't have a lot of time. There's various methods to process for fingerprints. The most common one that you see is using fingerprint powders. But in addition to that, if fingerprints are on, let's say, a paper product, instead of using powder on there, because that's a porous surface, it won't work, we have to process it with various chemicals. Some things what we do is we do a thing called supergluing. It's called cyanoacrylate. Okay? I don't know, have you ever heard of supergluing something? Sometimes you've seen this in these forensic shows. It was in one of the Eddie Murphy movies, Beverly Hills Cop 2, where he takes a little, I think it was a matchbook, and he puts it in a fish tank. That's what we used to use. We used to use a fish tank just like that. It's real simple. Now we've got this big cabinet that we use to do it. But what ends up happening is when you get an object, a non-porous object, something that's not paper product, we can put it in these tanks, and we take super glue and we put it in a little tray, just like this, a little tin tray. We put a few drops of super glue in here, and then what we do is we heat this up in a sealed container. And what ends up happening is when that super glue gets heated, it turns into a vapor, and it goes into the tank, and it wants to be, it's attracted to moisture. Well, fingerprints, again, are made up of moisture. So what will happen is those fumes will be attracted to the fingerprints, they adhere to it, they turn the fingerprint white, and then they harden on there, and that develops the fingerprint. With a fingerprint brush, as you brush over things, you have a tendency to wipe fingerprints away because it's abrasive. Okay. Whereas when the fumes touch it, there's nothing that's touching the fingerprint, so it works real well. Now, on TV, you always see a brush. It's a fiberglass brush, or it'll be like a feather brush. That's what they used for years. It works pretty well, but that's what a typical fingerprint brush looks like. But what we had you use, what works even better, is magnetic powder. What this is ground up metal particles. They're very, very fine, and this is just a magnet. So what we do is we just collect some of those particles on here, and we use this to go over there, and it's very non-abrasive because it's just the particles that are touching it. And then when I release the magnet inside, it just drops it down there. And what ends up happening is these particles go across that moisture and oil, and they get stuck to those ridges, those ridge impressions that are on there. And it's those ridges, those individual, what we call ridge characteristics, where a ridge ends or it splits, that we use to identify somebody. We respond to the entire city from this division. This is kind of the central location. We've got normally 3 or 4, sometimes 5 squads that'll go out on a given night, evidence vans, that'll be here. The detectives will decide which scenes we're supposed to go to. They'll call for us, and we respond from this building all the way out the County Line Road, down to College, wherever we're needed. We go from here. There's no technician that works out of a district station because everything needs to be housed here. This is where all our computers are. This is where we bring all the evidence in. Years ago, they'd see somebody show up, they would, there's the guy that dusts for fingerprints. It's no big deal. But just by watching TV and movies and shows, you can see how valuable it can be because people are becoming more sophisticated. And if something happens and there's no eyewitness to it, what have you got left? You've got forensic evidence, whether it's a shoe print, whether it's blood or DNA or fingerprints. That's what we do.
In picking the candidates for the Police Citizen Academy, the police department worked to make the class as diverse as possible. Those who signed up for the opportunity to find out what police work is like did so for many reasons.
Well, I teach school, and I thought this would be a very effective way of presenting the police department in a positive way, in a positive view. And because there's so many nuances to police work that I thought it would be a way to see some of the things myself.
My interest basically is to get familiar with how, the day-to-day basis of the police department, how they work, why they do the things they do, why they come under so much criticism, and we as the public not knowing why. Now this is basically educating me on why the media, comes after them the way they do, and it's personal reasons also, and just to pass information along to my family and friends, and to let them know that the police aren't always the enemy, that they are here to help.
The Police Administration Building is also headquarters for the Criminal Investigation Bureau. Detective Lieutenant Eric Moore showed the students a small lineup room, then moved to a stage in the Detective Assembly where he explained how larger lineups are handled.
We have hats if we have problems with hairstyles, if one hairstyle might be prejudicial to the hairstyle of one of the suspects may be prejudicial to somebody else. We'll cover their hair. A lot of guys, they'll have these around the face, so a lot of times people will say, well, he had a mask on or a bandana and I could only see his nose and his eyes. So we'll have all of our lineup participants, with a bandana worn the same way. Or a lot of times we'll have some of the larger viewings where we have a lot of people, like in a bank robbery or something like that, and we'll have the people sitting at desks, and we have to keep them separated so that they don't taint other viewers, their opinions and perceptions by talking. So we have to keep everybody separate. They get instructions. We operate this thing from that control panel right there. This whole thing will be lit up, and they'll be blinded by the lights, and we'll dim all of the lights in the rest of the assembly, and they really can't discern all of the fine features of the people who are viewing the lineups.
One room off the Detective Assembly contains nothing but files of those who are victims or perpetrators of homicides.
Each one of these people represent people who lived and breathed here on our city streets in Milwaukee prior to them dying at the hands of someone else. If you guys really want to appreciate the gravity of this, just take a look on that other aisle there.
This is like a very condensed graveyard. If you can imagine being in a vault, each one of these represent lives. Now, a lot of these are victims that did nothing to contribute to their deaths. Others are victims whose lifestyles contributed to their deaths. I mean, oftentimes they were suspects that ended up being victims.
The Homicide Division is only one part of the Criminal Investigation Bureau. There are detectives working on crimes against people, against property, non-fatal violent crimes, and arson. There's a senior citizen squad, auto and warrant squads, seeking the most wanted.
Some of them you'll see UFAP. Okay, and that means that because we have reliable information that these individuals have fled to avoid prosecution, what we do is we go into federal court, and we'll usually have like the FBI or someone do that. We'll go to the United States Attorney, and we'll get federal warrants on these people for unlawful flight to avoid prosecution. Okay, we have a person's follow-up book and a property follow-up book. And basically whenever, follow-up is loose ends. Okay, things that need to be done to complete an investigation. And what we do is we use a team concept in attacking complaints here, or criminal investigations. What we'll do is, say I come out at 4 o'clock and investigate a robbery, okay? And we identify a suspect. When I go home at midnight, if that suspect's not in custody, that follow-up to locate that suspect and arrest him and interview him regarding the robbery, goes to the next shift, to another detective in that unit.
Week 5 found the members of the Police Citizen Academy back in the classroom where they viewed a video on police emergency vehicle operations. They took a look at everything a well-equipped officer carries in a squad car. And they took a close look at a squad, inside and out. They found out that officers are expected to not only patrol with that vehicle, but take care of it. That includes checking the oil when filling the gas tank.
Drive away, my patrons. He's got to go. Hold a press conference. No more. Yeah. Who are you? Hi, Jose. What's up?
The tavern scene is another kind of classroom at the academy. It's a noisy bar, the TV is on, people are yelling, a customer is drunk and rowdy. It's a difficult situation for an officer. Training shows them how to protect themselves, how to recognize potential weapons, how to control that unruly person.
And you wonder why it takes 3, 4, or 5 officers sometimes to get someone handcuffed or get them under control. It's not easy. It's not easy at all.
It was then time to suit up in special protective clothing for another lesson in self-defense. Once again a loud bar and a belligerent customer. The challenge to keep their hands up in a defensive position, to keep their distance, to be assertive. Don't come in like officer friendly with this kind of person, they were told, because if you do, you can get hurt.
If he does it properly, he's got his hands up and people are wondering, why is this policeman walking like that? You know? Or why does he have his hand on his gun when he's walking up to the car in the middle of the night, looking in the window to see if there's... He doesn't know who's in there. He doesn't know who this person is. He wants to protect himself so he doesn't get hurt or injured. So he's doing the techniques that we teach him.
Now what we want you to do is expose the handcuff groove by dropping your arm down just like that, okay?
The police gymnasium was the setting as the students got some hands-on training with handcuffs. Again, the emphasis was on self-protection while controlling the situation and the person being handcuffed.
They expose the handcuff groove, okay? Touch right in the handcuff groove right over here, okay? Push, ratchet, okay? Then from there, we want to keep control of the chain, okay? We call it punching the back. Right in the middle of the small of the back, okay? We reposition the handcuff, we take control of the fingers, thumbs in the back of the hand, you drop that hand in the handcuff groove, and you snug them in. Then what we want to do is we want to do an escort. First of all, we want to relinquish control of this chain, because once you grab the chain, if he starts fumbling around, it can crush your hand, all right? So you want to let go of the chain as soon as you can. Take control of the back of the hand. Take control, an escort, okay? Take your right foot back so your groin is protected, and then you can walk them around.
123 South Juberti, man with a gun, hostage situation. Okay, what are you going to start thinking about?
Class 7 found the academy students working with a little city to learn about police response to various situations and what's called the Incident Command System. In other words, who's in charge on the scene. Officers would have to decide such things as how to handle the problem, whether to call a special weapons and tactics unit. Then it was back in the classroom for a session on problem solving. This lesson, seeing how officers many times get information that is not relevant to their investigation, and how not being familiar with language or terminology can make that problem solving more difficult. Week 8 found the students back in class to learn about internal investigations and citizen complaints. The biggest complaint against cops, rude and discourteous behavior.
It always starts with something else usually, and people aren't always pleased with the decisions that we as police officers make. Like the example we gave earlier, if you receive a citation and they feel that it's our responsibility to release that citation, we don't have that authority. So then it kind of goes from there. Well, I didn't like the way he or she talked to me. How did they talk to me? And we try to get people to explain what were the actions of the officers. You know, just because you got that ticket doesn't mean that they were particularly rude to them. But that's kind of like their way of getting back at the officers.
Firearms training probably brought about the most heart-pounding and stressful part of the training program: how to hold a weapon, align the sights, how to always consider a weapon to be loaded.
We instruct you, we show you how to do it, we show you how to perform the task that we want you to do, and then we actually have you do it, and then we have you go through it. There's basically two parts to firearms. There's in-service, what we call in-service, which police officers have to attend at least twice a year, and it's 4 hours for each time that they come. What they'll do also is they'll do what you're going to be doing probably the next time you come down. It's called simunitions and VATS. VATS is like for lack of a better term, like a video game. It's like a fun video game. You're going to have a big screen up there, and there's going to be a scenario that's going to be presented to you, and you're going to have to make a decision as whether to shoot or not. Simunitions, that's going to be a little bit different for a lot of you, because simunitions is as weird as it gets. I mean, as close as you can get to a real live shooting, because with simunitions, if somebody points a gun at you and you don't take the correct action, whether you need to fire at them or not fire at them, and they fire at you, it is going to, for lack of a better term, a live round, but it's a paintball round that's going to come out and hit you. But believe me, when it hits you, you know. And the police officers love simunitions. That's the best thing, because it's, even with all the high technology with the video games and everything else that they have, there's nothing that's closer than doing that.
People ask you and people say, well, why didn't you shoot the gun out of his hand? Okay, you got to remember, under stress. And this is stressful enough, you just being here and shooting if you've never shot before. It's very stressful for the recruits to come in here.
We didn't put that stress upon you. It's the stress you put upon yourself. But think about when that heart rate's up to 180 beats, the respiration, you stop breathing. You stop breathing. Your cognitive thinking is gone because you rely on your, what we call the sympathetic response. That training will come and kick in here and you'll do what you were trained to do.
Another field trip for the class took the students to the 3rd District Police Station. Police work, of course, is more than guns and squads. Much of what they do requires paperwork, perhaps 400 reports per shift, and computers. Police analyze all crime information and consolidate it for commanders. The final class day also included the opportunity to view 911 operators handling emergency calls from Milwaukee residents. Graduation day ceremonies for the Citizen Academy were the same as those for any police recruit class. Chief Arthur Jones and the command staff on hand, along with friends and relatives. Chief Jones said the class had been exposed to the police department in a way few other citizens have ever been.
All of these training scenarios and instructions on criminal laws, city ordinances, and the criminal justice system sought to impress upon our graduates the Milwaukee Police Department's goal of providing professional, efficient, and effective police services to the citizens of the city of Milwaukee. This innovative program serves as another example of our commitment to building a stronger relationship between the police and the community that we serve. I sincerely believe that after this training, these graduates recognize that commitment.
Thank you for your dedication and contribution to the citizens of Milwaukee. Your creation of the first Milwaukee Police Department Citizens Academy is an indication of your desire to foster goodwill between the Milwaukee Police Department and the citizens of Milwaukee. Thank you for the opportunity and experience. Citizens Academy Class 1, 2003.
There were so many things that we learned. You know, it was just really nice to work with all the people from the different departments. I think just about all of them took us seriously, that we had a genuine interest in it and weren't kind of just here to play, you know. I sincerely hope that whoever is the new chief will continue the program, and I hope that they'll find a use for us, you know, out in the public, you know, attending whatever, you know, because I'd sure like to go out after having spent all this time learning all the intricate, you know, details, to go out and share them with other people.
I feel pretty good about what I've gone through thus far, and what I've learned is self-defense techniques and honed on my weaponry skills. See, I got a little rusty, but I still got it. Other than that, also how the operation of the police department as a whole and how they work with the community and what can be improved in the community with the police department.
It was an excellent program. I learned a lot. I was just thinking on my way here that it's the terrorism situation that prompted me to take the course, and here it's 9/11, graduation day. So, I think the course is well worth it. I'm happy, glad I attended.
Can you appreciate better, do you think, what an officer does?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I have to really give them a lot of credit. It's unbelievable what they have to go through.
Well, the 10-week program was a great experience for me because I want to be a police officer someday. And we get to see the background of the police department. People see the patrol and the chases, but we got to see the inside of the department. Identification Bureau, that's very informative for us. We got to see just regular police officers doing regular duties in the office and other phases of policing, just not just chasing people as we see on TV and on cops. So it's very informative for me.
The Milwaukee Police Department also views your participation in this program as an example of your dedication to your community. By taking time out of your personal lives and participating in this program, you have demonstrated your commitment to the city and your interest in making Milwaukee safer and more enjoyable as a place to live and to work. The instruction that you have received will further enhance your ability to assist the police department, your family, and your neighbors in ensuring the safety and the vitality of your community. Your participation in this program also benefits the Milwaukee Police Department. Having been introduced to the operations of this department, you are now informed as to both the capabilities and, maybe more importantly, the limitations of the Milwaukee Police Department. I look forward to working collaboratively in meeting our objective to reduce crime and enhance the quality of life for the citizens of the city of Milwaukee.